right now on Chronicle in High Definition.
Today, the State House. Tomorrow, the nation's capital for lobbyist John Anton.
If I keep moving forward, no one's going to stop me.
Anton's disability is no match for his determination.
I am going to go further and further and further.
Melanie McLaughlin was told what no pregnant woman wants to hear.
Your fetus has Down syndrome. We just had this really awful decision that we had to face.
Now, with an earlier test for Down syndrome, a private decision becomes a public issue.
We really haven't all come together and discussed the ethical implications, the practical implications, and the social implications.
Plus, living longer, healthier, and happier with Down syndrome. Next on Chronicle. 2007 was turning out to be a banner year for Melanie Perkins McLaughlin. She was at the pinnacle of her career as a documentary filmmaker, and she and her husband Terry were expecting their third child. But after an amniocentesis during her 19th week of pregnancy, McLaughlin heard the words that changed her life.
Your fetus has Down syndrome. And I was just like, everything came out of me. I felt like I was punched in the gut, and I started to cry. And then I called my husband and told him, and we both cried on the phone. And he came home, and, he comforted me for a little while. And I stayed in my bed, and I cried, and I could feel her kicking in my belly, and it was just the most agonizing place to be as a parent.
Shaken, the McLaughlins were unsure what to do next.
We changed our mind every half an hour. My husband and I were just really torn about what to do. We didn't know anybody with Down syndrome. We had never had any experience. We really didn't know many people with disability. And I never felt so alone in my decision, because even though my husband was there, I was the person who had already bonded with the baby inside of me. We just had this really awful decision that we had to face with very little information.
Down syndrome is the most common genetic birth defect, affecting approximately 1 in every 700 babies. Dr. Brian Skotko, a geneticist at Massachusetts General Hospital, says those rates increase dramatically with maternal age. People with Down syndrome have one extra chromosome, presenting challenges at birth.
We know about half of babies born with Down syndrome will have some sort of heart condition, many of which need to be surgically repaired. Many times children with Down syndrome will have issues with their thyroid gland. But thanks to medical advances, we could fix the heart conditions. We have medicines to fix the thyroid issues. So a lot of those medical conditions can now be corrected, and people with Down syndrome are living longer than ever before.
The average lifespan for someone with Down syndrome has risen from age 25 to age 60 in the last 3 decades. Today, a baby born with Down syndrome has immediate access to life-changing therapies.
Babies with Down syndrome, when they're born, are getting speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, which we know through research puts them at a significant advantage when they get to school. Schools are now inclusive, so individuals with Down syndrome belong in the typical classroom. People with Down syndrome are now living semi-independently, meaningfully employed in the communities, and these were all possibilities we never imagined decades ago.
Melanie knew none of this before she began to do some research. That led her to the Massachusetts Down Syndrome Congress and the Parents First Call program. The program connected the McLaughlins with a family whose youngest daughter, Anna, has Down syndrome.
So I could see that Anna was a little bit smaller. Maybe she was a little bit delayed, but she was just a little girl, and her family adored her. And that, for me, was an important point. It wasn't like we met Anna and I just went, yeah, okay, we can do this. But Anna gave me the hope to think that maybe I could.
After an agonizing process, the McLaughlins decided to continue with the pregnancy. The day after Christmas, Grace was born and was immediately brought to the NICU. Still conflicted, Melanie waited 8 hours before going to see her newborn daughter.
I didn't wait 8 hours to see my other 2 children. I couldn't have waited 5 minutes. I was afraid to go see her because I was really afraid whether I would love her, what she would look like. So the nurse had to wheel me down to the NICU, and I went over, and she was beautiful. She was absolutely beautiful, and I fell in love with Grace that day. And I fell harder in love with her when she had to go for her open heart surgery.
After some terrifying moments, Grace came through her heart surgery healthy. And then Melanie had an epiphany.
I was never, ever gonna question my love for this baby again. You know, ever since then, I've just been her biggest fan and her staunchest advocate, and my whole family adores her, and she's been the best thing, you know, that ever happened to us. She's an amazing 4-year-old little girl. She makes me laugh every single day. She makes me dance every day. We have to dance every day. Lately, it's Christina Aguilera.
Melanie not only advocates for her daughter, but for the Down syndrome community as well. She is now a parent volunteer for the First Call program.
Sometimes they come and visit our home. Sometimes they decide not to continue their pregnancy. And I'm able to talk with those women and their families without judgment, because I always say to them that whatever decision you make, it'll be the right one for you. I think it's just important that whatever that is, you make an informed decision.
An informed decision that is complicated by advances in science and an easier and earlier genetic test. Melanie McLaughlin says today's disability movement is at roughly the same stage of development as the civil rights movement back in the 50s. She finds that she still has to speak up, sometimes loudly, to make sure that Grace gets the same treatment as other children. A change for the better? Women just 10 weeks pregnant can now check for Down syndrome.
These tests are able to predict with close to 99% accuracy whether or not the fetus has Down syndrome.